Hello guys, welcome back in Goku Manhwa. Let's continue.
Lanthan's mind buzzed with restrained fury, unusual for a peacekeeper of his order. Deploying such volatile energy so early, it wasn't just bold, it was reckless. But there was no turning back. The cost of activating the relic was high, no other magic could be wielded while it pulsed. Lam smirked, shadows flickering in his gaze. He tightened his grip on the obsidian reins and pushed the wyvern into a sharp dive toward the city's heart. "Let's make this count," he whispered. Within seconds, Lam then descended upon the central square. Before him stood Avil and the local enforcers, guarding the archives. As the wyvern barreled downward with crackling lightning coiling around its wings, the citizens stood frozen in terror. Dread crawled over the plaza like smoke, tightening its grip. The wyvern's shriek pierced the air, and there was something even more terrifying riding with it. Panic ignited instantly. People fled without thought, shoving and stumbling over each other in a chaotic tide never witnessed before. Avil dashed behind a column for cover. But when her gaze locked on the sky and saw the arc of pure lightning carving toward the city, she stalled. There was no shield strong enough, no spell fast enough to protect them. Every cry she heard was a reminder of what she couldn't save. Above, Lam then raised his arm. Just 100 meters off the ground now. He pointed. "Unleash the storm." The wyvern obeyed, its chest swelling as it released a roar, and a surge of electric fury exploded downward. Blinding bolts struck everything in their path, slicing through towers and shattering stone. The city twisted into chaos. Trees splintered. Statues crumbled. Sparks turned the wind into flame. Those lucky enough to escape the blast now faced the silence that followed, the arrival of something worse. The colossal airship descended rapidly, casting an ominous shadow that seemed to swallow the city below. Had it crashed, everything within a 100-meter radius would have been reduced to smoldering rubble in an instant. Avil refused to let that happen. She swiftly activated an ancient technique known as phase shift. In a blink, reality bent unnaturally. A swirling black vortex, darker than night itself, opened right beneath the falling ship. The massive vessel plunged into the distortion and disappeared without a trace. Avil exhaled sharply, brushing sweat from her brow, barely believing she'd diverted catastrophe. She turned her gaze toward Lanthan and the wyvern, only to find that both had vanished without a sound. At that same instant, Lanthan materialized before Kling once again. Kling recoiled, stunned. "You withstood the impact." "Absurd. What became of the airship?" Lam then offered a grin and remarked that Klang's granddaughter was nothing short of a miracle. Without her, the citadel would now be ash. Kling understood at last how Lam then had survived. Before he could speak, a battered messenger staggered forward, announcing that the defenders were unable to repel the shadow beasts. He begged Kling to act swiftly to drive them back. Kling's face darkened. He steadied the soldier and told him not to panic, everything remained within grasp. With care, he healed the worst of the man's wounds with a calming spell. In that brief pause, Lam then signaled the wyvern, which launched a blazing sphere of energy at Kling. Though caught by surprise, Kling barely summoned a protective barrier in time to block the blast. Enraged, he snapped, "Enough. Face me with honor, stop hiding behind cheap tricks." Lam then cackled. "You expect rules from me? I'm not one of you. I'm a Shadeborn. Shadeborn don't play fair." In that instant, Kling understood just how dangerous Lanthan had become. If this battle continued under such odds, he would lose everything. Without delay, he commanded every knight to withdraw behind the fortress walls. At his signal, many warriors turned and retreated. Those near the citadel managed to scramble back within its protective walls, but those still scattered beyond, and countless townsfolk, were left vulnerable to the Shadow Beast's relentless advance. As soon as the last group slipped through, the massive gates slammed shut with finality. Inside the walls, the chaos began to quiet. But hope had all but vanished. Questions echoed through the halls. How could their finest warriors fall to such cursed creatures? The earlier clash had claimed over 3,000 lives. In return, only a few hundred shadow beasts were felled. Dread settled like smoke, thick and suffocating. If things continued this way, annihilation was inevitable. Faces turned ghostly pale. Murmurs of helplessness crept in. If only the Twilight Sentinel still walked among them. Then a strong, youthful voice rang through the square. It was Avel. Had you all forgotten? Just this morning I promised the House of Kling shall protect every soul within these walls. Behind her stood a disciplined line of battle scribes, channeling arcane power into blazing spells that rained down upon the advancing beasts. Avel raised her hand and declared with calm authority. So long as we stand, these walls will remain unbroken. No enemy shall pass. Outside, the barrage ignited a storm of explosions, tearing through the enemy ranks. The dark tide faltered under the onslaught, and casualties began to mount. Soaring above on his winged mount, Lam called for the forces to pause and beckoned Guan to the front. Seeing this, Avel's resolve hardened. She believed they had struck fear into the enemy's heart, especially after eliminating more than 10 elite foes. At her side, Kling nodded. He hadn't expected such swift progress. If not for that earlier ambush, they could have ended this siege already. Avel's eyes flicked between Lamthan and Kling. Is that truly the one who once defeated the Twilight Sentinel? Then if I strike him down, wouldn't that make me even stronger? Kling laughed heartily. That's right, my brilliant granddaughter. He is your proving ground. From high above, Lanthan's voice echoed down, deep and chilling. I came here with no intention to destroy you. But your pride has rewritten fate. Whatever follows is your own doing. Avel muffled a scoff with her hand. Such grand words, coming from a shade-born runt. You think yourself capable of shaping destiny? Lam then offered only a quiet smile, then turned the wyvern away from the stronghold. Behind him flew Guan, Vichan, and over 10 more adversaries bearing the marks of ancient power. Their new destination, the civilian haven. The air tensed as realization struck. Among the mags, panic whispered again. Lady Avel, are they targeting the shelter? Avel calmed the crowd with unwavering certainty. Stay calm. We already fortified the haven with an elemental ward. Not even a high-tier cursed beast can pierce it. Moments later, Lamthan and his monstrous allies arrived at the sanctuary. A dome of glowing sapphire energy shimmered over the shelter like a protective shield. Guan stepped forward and asked Lamthan for a chance to prove his might. Once granted, Guan asked everyone to keep their distance. With a smirk, he grounded his stance. His approach was direct, he funneled every ounce of his corrupted energy into a frontal assault. Each had echoed like thunder, shaking the earth itself. Inside the citadel, Kling felt the vibrations beneath his boots and narrowed his eyes. This isn't good. That ward is close to failure. With a final, furious strike, the barrier splintered like glass. An splitting blast ripped the sanctuary entrance apart. Panic seized the people. Cries rang out in waves. Where is Avel? Why hasn't she come? Is no one left to protect us? If only the Blade Guardian still lived. Only he could stand against such power. Lamthan and the others stepped inside, faces blank as they surveyed the frightened crowd. Lanthan's expression remained unmoved. No flicker of guilt crossed his features. In a low, frigid voice, he spoke. Since those in the fortress chose silence, we will drag them into the light. We will force their hand, one way or another. He raised his arm, signaling the others. No mercy, no delay. Children clung to parents. Elders trembled. Even the sky above seemed to dim. From the edge of the forest, a shadow watched, blade in hand, aura hidden. The figure whispered quietly, not yet. But soon. Somewhere deep within the mountains, a forgotten flame stirred awake. And far above, where magic turned to wind and clouds whispered old names, something ancient turned its gaze toward the shelter, and waited.